Hey, what's up, everybody out there, and welcome to another episode of the Amplify Bible Study. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, you can find all the information about the study over at amplifybiblestudy.com. Be sure to bookmark that page because heading into the new year and the rest of this year, we're going to be doing a lot of things over there on that website. Also, if you have not already joined our private Facebook group where all the discussions about the study occur, please go ahead and go over and do so now. You can find the link right there off of the website as well. I hope you had a great week. I hope you had time off because we weren't with you last week. But as I said in the video, I wanted you all to go back and kind of review some of the videos that we've been doing so far, some of the episodes that we've had so far, because we're going to kind of go into a section of the book of Numbers now that's going to take a while to get through, because it really covers basically 3 chapters in the book of Numbers is what we're going to be looking at. Not all today, but this whole entire episode covers about 3 chapters in the book of Numbers. So we're going to go through it very slowly because there's a lot of points you're going to want to understand, a lot of things you're going to want to take a look at to really and truly understand. So let's go ahead and dive in, shall we? We're going to open your Bibles. If you want to follow along, I am using the CSB translation in this episode, and probably through this entire section, I'll be using the CSB. That's kind of my main go-to translation. It's my everyday Bible translation, the one I use when I preach as well. So, open on up to the book of Numbers. We're going to be in Numbers, and we're going to be in chapter 22. And we're going to be looking at a couple very interesting individuals here in the Bible. One in particular that is incredibly interesting individual, and his name is Balaam. We're going to get to him in just one second, but let's go ahead and dive in now, shall we? And we see in verse 1, the Israelites traveled on and camped in the plains of Moab near the Jordan River across from Jericho. Now, this isn't quite exactly where we had picked up from the last time we stopped, because there is a section here that we did not go through. I'd highly encourage you to go back and read through the census that occurs in between the 2 times that we are looking at here. But it's very hard to do the census on this show because it's just reading off names and reading off tribes. But it is in the Bible, and it's important to go back and look at that. So where we see now is the Israelites have come to this camp, and they are camping here, right here on the plains of Moab. Now Balak, son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. Moab was terrified of the people because they were numerous, and Moab dreaded the Israelites. We have to understand something very important here. This is where, and you hear me talk about it a lot, reading the Bible and studying the Bible is 2 different things, because something is occurring here that we need to be made aware of. We see here Moab was terrified of the Israelites, right? Moab dreaded the Israelites. Well, if Moab understood God's promise and God's instruction to the Israelites, this entire episode we are about to read could have been avoided. Because what Balak, the king of Moab, did not understand was that Israel had absolutely positively no plans to take Moab. None whatsoever. We say, well, how could you possibly know this? Because God instructed her not to. See, God had gifted the land of Moab to the Moabites and had actually forbidden any Hebrew from attacking the territory. Look at, you don't have to turn there because I'm going to read it here, but in Deuteronomy 2:9, we read this. The Lord said to me, show no hostility toward Moab and do not provoke them to battle, for I will not give you any of their land as a possession, since I have given Ar as a possession to the descendants of Lot. So God specifically says, even if you attack them, you're not going to get it as a possession, because I have already promised that to section of land, that portion of land, to the descendants of Lot. So when we read here that Balak is terrified of Israel and sees them coming and camping on the plains, had he just known of God's promise, none of what we're about to read would have occurred. But we're going to go ahead and go on. Verse 4, so the Moabites said to the elders of Midian, totally different places here. Moab and Midian are about to partner up, is what we're going to see here. This horde will devour everything around us like ox eats up the green plants of the field. Since Balak, son of Zophar, was Moab's king at the time, he sent messengers to Balaam, the son of Beor, at Pethor, which is by the Euphrates in the land of his people. Balak said to him, look, a people has come out of Egypt. They cover the surface of the land, are living right across from me. He's really laying it on thick here. I can look out my window and all I see are these people that have come out of Egypt. The people that have come out of Egypt are, of course, the Israelites is what he's talking about here. Please come and put a curse on these people for me because they are more powerful than I. I may be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land, for I know that you are blessed, and I know that those you bless are blessed, and those that you curse are cursed. The elders of Moab and Midian departed with fees for divination in hand. They came to Balaam and reported Balak's words to him. So a lot to unpack here, right? A lot in that verse. So let's start with the basic one. The king, Balak, king of Moab, firmly believed that there was no way militarily he was going to be able to defeat the Israelites. He absolutely 100% was convinced of this. He saw the only hope that he had in defeating them was through this person named Balaam. Now, who's Balaam? I mean, he's the central figure moving forward here in this section of Scripture. So who was he? Well, I read, as I was preparing for this message, I read a very interesting way that somebody had described who Balaam was. And he put it this way: Balaam was the pagan counterpart to Moses being a man of God. So, in other words, as Moses would speak and have that personal relationship with God, Balaam was kind of his pagan counterpart, doing it with all the other gods, quote unquote, that the people followed. It's important to understand something, though, here. It's very important to grasp this. He was not a good prophet who went bad, or a bad prophet who was trying to do good. He was completely and totally removed from the Israelite prophetic traditions. He wasn't a godly prophet. He was a diviner. He believed that God was like any other deity that he can manipulate through these type of sacrifices and divinations. And here's the thing that's a little freaky. See, I did some research on this, as I have a tendency to do, and this kind of gave me chills, so be prepared for what I'm about to say. He was a prophet who actually focused on animal divination, and particularly using a sheep's liver to seek the will of the gods. That tells you the kind of God this guy is that they're going to in trying to procure his services to help defeat the Israelites. And he was known throughout the entire land. He was known throughout the world. He was like the LeBron James of diviner prophets here. All right? And they were actually celebrated some of his prophecies hundreds of years after his death. I'm saying all this to try to get you to understand this is who Balak is calling out to help. This is the guy that they are resting their hopes on. This guy who is well known, the number one guy in what he does. So let's go on to verse 8. He said to them, the people who came, right? Spend the night here, and I will give you the answer the Lord tells me in the morning. So the officials of Moab stayed with Balak. Little cocky there, isn't he? Spend the night here, and I know God will come and talk to me, and I'll tell you in the morning. I mean, that's some arrogance there. They're just, hey, it's only going to take me one night to get this figured out. So go ahead and spend the night. And then I'll know exactly what it is that God wants me to do. But look at verse 9. Then God came to Balaam and said, "Who are these men with you?" Balaam replied to God, "Balak, son of Ziphor, king of Moab, sent this message to me. Look, a people has come out of Egypt, and they will cover the surface of the land. Now come and put a curse on them. I am able to fight against them and drive them away." Couple of important things to take note of here. The first and foremost, number one important thing to take note of is God actually does speak to Balaam. There's no denying this. Balaam is having a conversation with God here. Just like Moses would have a conversation with God, God is having this conversation with Balaam. But Balaam does not realize here, or doesn't realize yet, that God is not the same as the other gods that he deals with. The Lord Almighty, Yahweh, is not the same as those he's been manipulating throughout the years. He doesn't realize that yet. Then God said to Balaam, "You are not to go with them. You are not to curse these people, for they are blessed." You know what? God says that to me, that's the end of the discussion right there. God tells me I'm not to do something because that thing is blessed and I am not to do it. That's it. Done. Game over. No matter what happens next, that's it. I am out. I am done. And I would hope most of you would be that way too. So Balaam got up the next morning and said to Balak's officials, "Go back to your land because the Lord refused to let me go with you." So he tells them, hey, God said, absolutely not. Nope, go back. The officials of Moab rose, returned to Balak, and reported, "Balaam refused to come with us." So they tell him, right? But that's not what really happened, right? Because that's not what Balaam said. See, they go back and report to Balak, he just refused to come with us. But what actually happened was God did not grant him the permission to come with them. That's what should have been told to Balak, because hopefully right then, that's said, it's over, it's done. But that's not what happened. So of course, Balak's going to step up the game here. Balak sent officials again who were more numerous and higher in rank than the others. They came to Balaam and said to him, This is what Balak son of Ziphor says. Let nothing keep you from coming to me. In other words, name your price. We got a blank check. Name your price to come with us. For I will greatly honor you and do whatever you ask of me. Please come and put a curse on these people for me. Now, here is where the test comes in. He's the king, the leader of Moab is saying, it's a blank check. Tell me what you want. Could just come do the curse. But Balaam already knows that God has said, no, you are not to go with them. And he doesn't just say, no, you're not to go with them. He lays out why. These people are blessed. They're covered under my protection. They have my protection and blessing. You are not to mess with them. I bring this up and I'm driving this point home because we live in a world today that people don't understand this. People do not understand that the nation of Israel is blessed by God, and you are not to go against them. And those who go against them will suffer the consequences of God. See, you can read this and not think of any practical application, any modern day application for it, but I'm telling you right now, that's point number 1 of today's lesson. When these people, the second time, come back and say, name your price and come with me, what Balaam should have done, and we all know what he should have done because it's the same thing we should do that we don't do, is say there was no price you can say. There was no amount you can write on that line. There was no check you can write big enough that is going to have me go against something that God has blessed. But that's not what happens, right? But Balaam responded to the servants of Balak, if Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not go against the command of the Lord my God to do anything great or small. Please stay here overnight as the others did, so that I may find out what else the Lord has to tell me. Oh, that sneaky little Balaam. And we can sit here and we can criticize what he just said. But I'm going to put a stopper in that for right now and continue with this, because we're going to come back to this. God came to Balaam at night and said to him, since these men have come to summon you, get up and go with them, but you must only do what I tell you to. When he got up in the morning, Balaam saddled his donkey and went with the officials. Okay. Balaam already had his answer. The very first time God said the people are blessed, you are not to do this, boom, end of discussion. It was a black and white, no gray area answer that Balaam had got the first time. Don't we get complete black and white, no gray answers from God all the time? And don't we do exactly what Balaam does when we get those answers? We try to find that little opening, right? Because we see the officials come back the second time, and Balaam had the opportunity to say, you guys are wasting your time. It doesn't matter what you say, what you do, what you say you're going to give me, what you say you're going to do to me. The answer is always going to be no. Instead, what's he do? Stay here and let me see if God might give me a little opening to help you all. See, this is something, like I said, this is something that we do all the time. God will permit us to do the things we want to do after he has told us not to do them. I want that to sink in there. He will allow us to do these things that we might find the loophole that we think is there, even though he said all along no. See, the phrasing that is used here, all right, is actually something called the permissive will of God. That's what in the great big theological circles is what it's called, the permissive will of God. And what it means is God will many times permit us to do something that we insist on doing, even though it is not in his direct will for us. God has already told Balaam, no, you are not to go. But when he plays this game of, I'm going to go back the second time to see, God says, okay, since they've come back for you, and since you didn't tell them an emphatic no, I'm going to allow you to go. But he adds that caveat at the end of it. Look at the caveat he adds at the end of verse 20. But you must only do what I tell you to. Now, this phrasing is the same phrasing that God uses when he speaks to Moses. And what it actually implies, it's an understanding that you're going to faithfully follow God and the commands he gives you in the order in which he gives them to you. And that's key here. The Hebrew that's used and the words that are used here are, you can go, but when you go, you better do what I tell you to do the way I tell you to do it. What's happening here is God knows Balaam's real intent in wanting to go. He knows what it is. Just like he knows what our real intent is whenever we go back to him and seek that permissive will from God. That we cannot accept it, that what his answer for us is the best thing for us, and instead we're going to say, God, just let me go. We've already made up our minds. We're going to do it no matter what God tells us. As I was getting this message ready, I use a lot of commentaries. And one of the commentaries I use is the J. Vernon McGee's Through the Bible commentary. And in this section, he tells a very funny story. Right? He tells a funny story of a pastor that comes in and is all excited. And he tells his wife, oh, honey, I think I'm being called to go to the town over from us and go pastor the church there that has an opening. I feel I'm being called to this. It's a much bigger town, and it can be more money, and it can be this, and it can be a better life for us. And I really feel I'm being called to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to pray. And I'm going to pray to God to make sure that the calling that He has on my life and the calling that I'm feeling is exactly what it is that He wants me to do. And the wife's all excited, and she says, okay, I'll go up and pray with you. Let's go upstairs and pray together. And the husband looks at her and says, no, you stay here and pack. In other words, he had already made up his mind. And we do this. We already make up our mind before we go to God in prayer sometimes. We already know that we're not going to listen to that leaning that He has when we're in that prayer time with Him, because our mind is made up. Balaam's mind was made up the moment those second group of emissaries showed up. He was going to go no matter what. God said, if you want to go, go. But do what I say when you're gone. Well, does Balaam do that? We're going to find out as we continue this study. Thank you so much for checking it out. I know I went a little bit longer than I normally do, but this first section has a lot in it that you have to get the background for as we move forward in the other sections. Remember, if you did not watch the video that was posted in the Facebook group yesterday, I'll be posting it to YouTube, our YouTube channel today, and to the website today as well. I want you all to remember, starting in 2021, because we figure we're going to have this number study wrapped up right around the beginning of the year, we're going to be going into a very new study, a different format for the study. It's going to be a daily, Monday through Friday, very quick 3 to 5 minute videos and questions with those videos from a book that I will be using. You don't have to have the book to do the study, but if you want to follow along in the book, I will post the link to the book in that video that I'll be posting later today. Thank you so much. Amplify Bible Studies, the hub where you can find everything for the study. And until next week, God bless you. Continue to go out and make those disciples. And remember, questions to this video will be posted very, very soon. Have a great day, everybody.